So I can see. Some please. I'd call the meeting to order and would ask for motion to adopt the agenda unless there are any additions.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor? Okay. Ready for presentations, I believe. And for representing 25 years of teaching and service.
Specifically, man, just to get going.
Very good. And FFA, please.
So, just like I did last year, this is the convention schedule. It was finalized as of track each morning at 7:30 a.m. I think that was last Thursday. Basically, we have a lot of cool things going on this year. We had 2 teams qualify for state, and then we also had Emma who qualified for state choir. So that's really cool this year. So this is basically our schedule as of right now. That shouldn't change any, hopefully. Basically that first day is basically they get to go to the zoo, they get to do a campus tour. While at K-State I was an ag ambassador, so I got to do all that fun stuff. So they're basically going to get the same tour prospective kids did. Hopefully get a look at some of the new construction on campus for the ag department. Basically simple day the first day. Second day is where it picks up, which is Wednesday. That's where we compete. We compete in the morning at 10:30 for ag issues, which is a team of 4. They basically have submitted their portfolio. They have hosted their 5 forums, and now they just have to do their final presentation, which is at state. We have Ethan and Broxton going as delegates. They basically go as voting members for our chapter for the entire state. Basically, they get to go sit in workshops for the day, listen to what's going on in FFA. I think there's going to be a lot of things that come up this year, just because of how things are going. And then vote on Kansas FFA stuff. At 1 o'clock, they compete in Quiz Bowl, which is basically similar to Scholars Bowl, except for they go to head for the 6 questions, and then they get to answer 4 as a team. It's a very competitive event. This is actually potentially the last year they're going to be doing this, so this may be the last time we get to compete in this. At that point, ignore the get to McCain to stand in line for seats. They put in a lottery system this year for opening session, which basically means our name goes in with everyone else's names and we see if we get seats. If we don't get seats in opening session, we will be in the overflow session, which is basically watching it from a live projection. So that may change, but we won't know until next week. Opening session and then concert of Ty Myers. That is at the Hat, is only for FFA members. It is not for anyone else to the public. Thursday, basically, this is one of our more simpler days per se. They get to relax a little bit more. Second general session in the morning, lunch, and then that 11:30 to 2 general session is agri-science fair recognition. We do have 2 teams in that this year. One in Plant Systems Division 4 with Brooklyn McGranahan and Hannah Younger, and then one in Plant Systems Division 6 with Brooke Henning and Emma Petersilly. They both got in the top 3, which I found out today, so they will be recognized at state for those efforts. That day, we get to see Emma perform at the choir and band performance, which is that afternoon, and then we'll get in line for the 7th session. Hypothetically, if we do well in ag issues, that is where we would get presented at that time. If we were to get in the top 4, we would get plaques, medals, etc. I would share that live stream link at that time on our Facebook. At 9 p.m. we'll go to Dodgeball and Alumni Center for Ignite the Night. Basically, you have a team of 6 for dodgeball. Then you play dodgeball against other chapters for the night. They added in a DJ this year, rock climbing, pickleball, that type of stuff, just to make it more of a fun event other than just dodgeball. At the end, varsity food truck, and then bedtime checks. And then finally, that hands-on service activity got taken out just because they are not offering anything Friday anymore. They were originally, they are not now. Fifth general session, which is the early session, if they were to do well in Quiz Bowl, they would get recognized at that session. We would also go to that session in general. 11 o'clock, band and chorus recognition. Emma would be able to be recognized there. There is limited seating. We are seeing if we can get in. I haven't seen tickets for that anywhere, go live anywhere yet. And then 1:37 general session. That's where Christian Pena, which is the state FFA president, will give his retiring address. They'll induct new officers as well as the choir's last performance. We would probably get back here, I had to guess, around 6 or 7 that Friday night. Why I came and asked, wanted to talk to you guys is that Thursday night before we go and play dodgeball. Last year I asked if you guys could provide one meal. We bought Jersey Mike's sandwiches last year. It's just a quick meal that we can have the kids sponsored by the board. We would cover everything else as FFA, of course. But basically just be able to order sub sandwiches quickly so that they can get something to eat before they continue on to their night.
Okay. I don't see anything later in the agenda, so that'd be appropriate to approve now. Okay. Would there be a motion to approve the meal? Okay.
So moved. Second.
Motion second, all those in favor? Thank you.
And Mr. K is the chaperone. I know last year they asked for those, so sorry.
Did Emma know that she has that much practice rehearsal time for that
Yes.
choir? Wow,
When we first
That's
got
a lot.
the schedule, it was a little intimidating, but we are working with her course.
Yeah, well, I know,
Yeah, she'll be in there 8 to 5.
that's a lot of rehearsal.
Building needs assessment.
You have a group of 4 members of your district leadership team to walk you through the building needs assessment as required by law.
So as the district leadership team, we set up 2 main goals to focus on over the course of the last year. Our first goal was to increase rigor throughout our day, making kids do some higher order thinking, asking some higher level questions. We had Glenn in several times for some trainings over the last 2 years. And this year, his focus was to come into our room and make sure we were truly implementing those things, giving us little things that we can tweak and change in the way we're presenting stuff, just to get even to the next level from there, get a little bit more engagement from the kids. So you can all read our rigor goal up here. And we've been taking the means to measure and look at data to make sure we're working towards that goal and truly doing what needs done. Some of the action plans that we came up with are the steps to be taken were to get those e-walkthroughs, which Mr. Reinhardt, Mr. Flax, and Glenn went through throughout the year and worked together to do those in our rooms, kind of helped Mr. Flax and Mr. Reinhardt better, I don't know, make things a little more even across the board. They know what to look for. They can ask Glenn specifics and just doesn't matter which one of those steps into our room. They're going to give us the same type of feedback because they're looking for the same things. The number of times that each teacher completes an e-walkthrough, that's something we want to add next year, is me as a teacher going into other classrooms and kind of seeing what they're doing, being able to give them some feedback, or me picking up some things that I can do in my room. So we plan to add that into next year's schedules and trying to figure out times and places to get into different classrooms. Then our professional development, we've talked about at the last in-service and kind of next steps for that. We've worked with Glenn well for the last couple of years. Next year, we feel like we're ready for something different. We're not sure that he's going to give us more to build on. So Mr. Reinhardt was going to work on finding some different things so that we can get different feedback and build on what Glenn kind of set up the foundation for. And then adding a protocol for the debriefing sessions. So one thing we found as teachers, they come in, they do their walkthrough, and we get an email the minute they walk out and submit their walkthrough that gives us a rundown of what they saw, their feedback, questions they have, ideas to make it better. But we have no true debriefing afterwards. We have no protocol set up for, hey, can I meet and kind of explain what happened before you walked in so you can see what you missed, because I did these 2 things that you commented on, just kind of some debriefing after the fact stuff. So that's kind of our plan. We've worked towards it. We've added some things, and now a plan for next year to build even more.
And then our second goal is the relevance goal, which you guys can do that. And then our improvement plan on that is to get more parent engagement across the district. So that they're hopefully knowing what's taught in school and know the proper chain of communications.
So our needs assessment, we went through at one of our in-services, and we've gone through individually, we've gone through in groups amongst the teachers, and then I know you guys were presented with the same form to fill out. So we got together and we looked for consistencies across the board in some needs that were being seen. These first 2 slides are specific to the elementary school, and then they go on to high school, junior high needs. One thing that we're struggling with at the elementary school curriculum wise, we have new math, we have new reading, but I have been here 17 years and we've had no new science or social studies curriculums. And I don't know that we want necessarily a full-blown curriculum, because our focus is math and reading, and we can tie science and social studies into those things, but we definitely need resources. Right now we get online and we're pulling random things from random places. And so it's very inconsistent. And so if we could have consistent resources, that would definitely help in every classroom. Technology, just updating things. Our Promethean boards, our smart boards are not smart boards anymore. They are fancy projectors. We can't even get the updated, there's no updated software for them. So they're pretty useless at this point. So updating smart TVs, which we're doing, we're getting them in more classrooms. Different document cameras. I know a lot of those have been replaced over the last couple of years. And then Chromebooks are obviously in a rotation. So those are being replaced, keeping those in a rotation. Some of the personnel needs that we feel we need or would benefit from. I know we've talked about the principal position to take some off of Mr. Reinhardt's plate and to give us a full-time go-to over at our building. At risk, the title position, we don't have that 4th through 6th grade anymore. We have it covered K3 with Mrs. Albers in title, but we don't have anybody for the 4-6 position, and then junior high also, I guess. Another teacher to reduce class sizes. We all know that would have been helpful this year in 6th grade for sure, and kindergarten, we have a big kindergarten class coming in. There's nothing you can really do if we're not getting applicants, but definitely something that we would still utilize. And then keeping the school nurse, if funding goes away for that, we definitely feel that would be something that we want to keep in place and finding a way to fund that. And then just replacing any special ed or certified personnel that we may have. The ESL para, we know we're losing, and our ESL population is growing. So just keeping those things up to date and making sure we kind of have replacements for where we need them.
And then the obstacles that we've seen for improvement is our growing ESL population and getting parents engaged and into our school more often. Student motivation, some of them just don't really seem to care one way or the other.
Or they need things to motivate them. They're not intrinsically motivated.
Yeah. And we have a large number of IEPs in our school, so just that's an obstacle that we have to overcome. And then staffing, getting paras, teachers, all of that stuff. And then just consistency from room to room too. And so the steps too that we've seen as possible solutions would be consistent high expectations, like at every level. Build overall school morale. There's sometimes a lot of negativity, so making sure that everybody's up and positive about that, and making sure that our students, staff, and community feel like we have a safe environment for our kids to come and learn in. Continued professional development for all of us, and then being able to fill those open positions that we have. And then just making sure that the policies and procedures that we have in place are being consistently followed.
I can follow up.
Okay, so at the high school, you'll notice that some of our stuff is the same as a grade school. Updated technology. I have a smart board, a meeting board in my classroom I haven't used because it doesn't work. I have a projector, but I'd like a smart TV in my room.
So a question on that. So the projector that goes to the Promethean board, the projectors are working, but the boards aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that the problem?
Because we can't get the boards to talk to our computers because they're
obsolete.
They're obsolete. Yeah. So I would like also a little more flexibility to walk around the room with my computer, but right now it's like tethered to a projector.
Right, okay.
If I had a TV in my room, I could connect it that way and have a little more, not that I would walk around with my computer, but it'd be nice to be able to, hey, I'm gonna move it over here instead of.
But even you could have an iPad to walk around,
Right.
and you can catch
Yeah.
some more things. And
Or
go
something
some
like
more.
that.
Okay.
So that's what,
Freely.
yeah. The updated science and social studies curriculum and 9 through 12 math resources. I'm gonna speak just from social studies and science, mostly social studies, because that's what I teach. We haven't had any updated curriculum since I've been teaching here. My government books are, because they're online. We don't use them a lot because they're online, so, which was a great idea, I think, when they started doing that, but it's not ideal, thank you. And then just to update the curriculum and those and align it to standards. We've not done that at all since I've been here. And the standards have changed. It's just making the time for that. And aligning it across the district too. You guys know we have the certified personnel. We need a business teacher. We need a facts teacher. We like to have a business teacher. We like to have a facts teacher. I think our kids are missing out on a lot, but they're not out there, and you guys know that. And we do need MTSS. We need to improve on that. And I think we've got some things planned for next year to make it a better for the kids, better for the teachers. And then the school nurse, we're on the same page with the grade school. We really think that Danielle has helped just a ton in the school, just with the unseen things. You know, I mean, it's hard for me to qualify or call what she does, but I know that she's taken a lot off of plates. And she's done a really good job. If we could keep her, that'd be fantastic. Special education paras, we'd love to have some reg ed paras. We have one right now, and then a librarian would be great. There's that
Oh.
regular line.
Okay, so space needs improvement over and the kind of the annex for the industrial arts and art room need updated. Obviously a lot of different repairs.
I'll toss it in with like the art room. It's not so much the classroom itself. It's just lack of storage. So stuff is cluttered in the room because there's just not good places, ample places for materials and stuff to be at. So I guess that's how I would classify that. I don't know if the working space, but the working space gets inundated with
Could that be out,
materials.
could that storage be outside?
Well,
Like,
I mean,
Like
just,
if we,
I think that's
if we had our industrial arts, or instead of doing a tiny house, build a shed or an insulated
well, I
building.
mean, I
to
think it probably help. I
Put
mean,
stuff in possibly.
something like that. But I mean, if you walk into those spaces, that's the first thing I think is just, man, where can all this stuff be? And I realize stuff stays out as they're working on it and they're only in their third hour each day or whatnot, so they leave their stuff there for the next day, but it's just, it just makes it look and feel packed. I mean, so, but anyway, go ahead. I won't.
But, and then in terms of repairs, you've done the building walkthrough, facility walkthrough, so there's significant repairs that are on the docket at some point. Gonna have to happen. So some of our barriers to success, probably the biggest one is going to be having people in the class to teach. Resignation list is pretty long on your agenda today. So, and teacher shortage isn't helping out there, but luckily we were able to find a math teacher, and so that's gonna be a big improvement. So we're not trying to put it all on Julian or Elevate K-12. In terms of parent involvement, that's gonna be always probably up there every year. Trying to get parents more involved with their kids to try and get them to be intrinsically motivated to do well in school and see the value in it. We've done well with increased academic expectations, just from training and consistency and having some teachers that not in a revolving door scenario. Classroom management, that will be always a challenge as well. I think that's from class to class. In terms of implementing research-based instructional practices, that will come from more professional development on different teaching techniques, because not every student is the same. Some of them need different approaches. And finally, and this will kind of go with the positive, being more positive about school, but both student positivity about being at school, as well as teacher burnout, trying to avoid that as well. So mental health, which
I'll add one thing with the parent involvement, and not to take off what they are, but I think a lot of times we put parent involvement and a lot of people hear that. Maybe your parents that might be watching, online right now, hear that, and they think they need to be at the school. I don't know if that's what our teachers are really asking for. They just would like to have that reinforcement from home. The interchange with emails, messaging and stuff like that. I think that's the parent involvement that sometimes I think maybe we don't define that with our parents enough to understand. It's not like that we call, run up to the school and let's have a quick meeting. I think a lot of it's just reinforcing the importance of what they're trying to take place during from 8 to 3:30. So anyway.
yeah, and when we put in grades for obviously an assignment missing, I rarely get an email from a parent asking what's up. There's no, like, the kid didn't do the work and is obviously okay with that. So that's something that's a parenting issue at that point. So. All right, so steps to achieve these goals, obviously more professional development next year is going to be more focused on curriculum alignment to the state standards. So start going through and making sure everyone's teaching what they need to, and also get communication across classes so that everything is getting covered. Continue to hire staff. Of course, that'll be as long as we can get someone in the door and they are qualified. Science and social studies curriculum, probably look at something like that. In terms of from the science perspective, I'd say just be books for me. I don't need a curriculum for my classes. I've been fine the past 4 years, 5 years. So, yeah. Continue to do the standards alignment that will go along with our professional development. That will be probably a multi-year challenge to everything get accomplished there where we want it. Continue on best practices as well. Curriculum aligning, student mental health. I think with student mental health, we got a couple things going there that are going to improve that, such as our spirit system that's been tested out this past year in the spring, which I've seen a decent improvement in student morale. So we just need to keep on that. So that was developed by Mrs. K. So, okay. Watch out for teacher burnout. That will be something I think with also like our spirit stuff, help out there, make it more than just teaching. And have some of those, make it a fun environment. And then continue to look at benefit packages for staff, so such as fun healthcare. Okay, watching that one. That will be a hot button one for a lot of staff.
Any questions for the building needs assessment team, building leadership team?
And I do think if you've been in the high school, junior high, if you've been to the gym, right outside the gym doors is our academic scoreboard that we put together towards the end of basketball. It's showing what we're doing and what we've been doing the last couple of years is working. So I really do feel like we're trending in the right direction, and we just need to keep building and fine tuning things and work together.
It's been a while since I looked, but like this graduating class, maybe had a third identifiable as Hispanic, I suppose. And as I looked over the grades, it seemed like it was tapering off the younger they got. Is it the increase being those with poor English skills, or?
I would say that the percentage of each class differs from class to class pretty big. We have a couple, I would say it's the freshmen and 8th graders this year, or the 7th and 8th graders. That group right there is almost 50%. But then we taper off, but what we're seeing is exactly that. We're seeing more and more kids that have little to no English. A lot of them coming directly from Mexico.
Okay.
And those are the ones that I think cause the most issue with the teachers is how do we reach that kid when there is almost zero communication available? We've got some pieces of technology that help with that. And we've got 2 bilingual pairs that help with that.
Are those, because I came to the library and had those earpieces, which that fascinates me, but is that program expensive?
Are they about $350?
Maybe, we have
Is that-
plenty of them. We
Oh,
do
really?
have plenty.
Um,
The
Do they
problem,
work well?
I was say the problem with it is you have to speak slowly and clearly.
I wondered about that.
And if you don't, it either won't translate, won't catch what you're saying, or sometimes it translates things not correctly, like really badly.
And it would be kind of like listening to a book on tape with lots of noise around you too.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
hard to focus.
It is, and it's good to have, like if you're one-on-one, it works great. In a classroom setting, it's a little more difficult, but it's better than nothing. So yeah, we have, I need to do inventory on them, but we have like 5 older models, and then I got 6 or 7 newer models this year. So I will say we did have a couple kids we go straight, from Mexico, no English this year. But as far as our ESL numbers, they are trending down. We have kids that are testing out of the ESL program. Every spring we have to give them a test. And several of our, especially our little kids, test out. So I think when I started here, we had almost, 38, 39 ESL kids. And now I have under.
Say that the old version of those headset things were really nice, but there was probably a solid 30-second delay. So it really threw things off. The newest version hits immediately. As you speak, it translates. But like Don said, the biggest problem in my ADHD mind, if there's something going on over here, I'm hearing it this year and trying to listen to a conversation in this year. So one-on-one, it's great, but in a classroom, I can see where it's a real struggle for kids.
And especially
work
if the
really
kids
neat.
have some focus issues, some that we don't have issues like that. I mean, that is a problem with it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a moment to read the consensus items. Question I have, significant reduction on the softball funds there.
We bought the fence.
Well, yeah, it was fencing.
Mhm.
Okay. Just curious. And then
And I think
other,
they bought a handful of pieces of
They've been-
equipment and
yeah.
stuff too. So
I'm sure the fence was a big.
Yeah.
And on expenses, first page, maintenance supplies that were 7,000 plus at S&W. Is that tiny house or other things or?
Tools.
For-
Patterson.
okay, yeah. So that's the tools we bought for the VOAG building,
Okay.
and then it'll be paid for through the Patterson
Through
grant.
tiny.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still working
Yeah,
on the
we're-
reporting out of the new system. This one just, it takes the first thing on the line when I pay the bills. And hopefully I can learn how to get that more detailed down for you guys.
Okay.
So we're still paying Nathan's under the hood?
Yes, and no, that's the final payment after he sent me after being moved. That's the final payment. for
Okay.
the Services he had not billed us for.
Did you ever check and see if it was legal to give the old settlers committee, so does that mean that any organization asks us for money, are we gonna be having to pony up to them too?
We can. I mean, it's fully up to you guys what you do. But you do have the authority to spend the money. And there's certain things you can and can't do, and there are certain ways you have to do it. But in situations like that, you do have the right to donate to things.
I need to approve the consensus items.
Second,
Have a motion and a second to approve the consensus items. All those in favor? Very good. Shelby on special ed.
Nothing to report. The next meeting's not till next Tuesday.
Thank you. Government relations.
I don't have anything.
Okay, moving right along with Mr. Flax, please.
Okay, I'll try to be somewhat quick here. Just a couple things here first, and then I'll get to the probably two bigger items there I'll address. The, we had our high school awards we'd go Wednesday there in the afternoon. I'm gonna say from my perspective, I thought things went well with the time change. Moving it to the afternoon, it was like I say, from my perspective, it was nice looking from the podium, looking out and seeing more than half full auditorium because of all the student body was there. And I did immediately send out an email to the parents just to see what kind of feedback and everything's pretty positive. I say that tomorrow we're gonna do the junior high awards and then / 8th grade promotion at kind of the same format there at 2:30 in the afternoon. The one drawback that and I kind of noticed it a little bit on that high school program is and hopefully I was able to address that a little bit with the 8th grader and their parents is we do lose a little bit of the formality. They're dressed for school, they're not dressed for a program, in nicer clothes and stuff like that. So we're, hopefully I encourage the 8th graders to, bring nicer clothes if they feel like they want to dress up. It won't be obviously a requirement or anything like that, but so we can hopefully try to address that too. But that's the one thing that I would say that of the downfall from going to afternoon programs. But again, it was really truly nice that there was only, I think, 4 kids missing that were absent for different reasons. And so all awards were presented and everybody, got called to the stage, was there to be called to the stage. That's always one of those things that you just, like I said, myself as the principal, I just hate when I call the kid's name for an award and they're not in attendance. And so that was good. But anyway, doing that, we're set graduation last Saturday. Thought things went fairly well there. Had a nice ceremony minus the audio. Darn thing, that slideshow. Tried it Friday night. It worked. My wife made a couple edits to it. The students put it together Saturday morning. It worked. And then of course Saturday afternoon, no volume. So I felt bad for that, for the losing that. I do have a fix for that for next year, but we'll worry about that. I'll tell you guys what that is next year, what the fix will be for that. All right, I'm gonna, Mr. Reinhardt, I don't know if you want to pull up that demo site with graduation Saturday. I don't know, those of you that was in attendance noticed, I know I brought it up to your attention, I think before, but we are out of room with the senior panels. Every spot is full, and so I started looking to see if there are any potential digital, because I kind of looked around and I'm sure we can probably find them somewhere. I have not been able to find a company that makes the senior panels like we have right now, that hang on the wall, swing, I'm sure there's probably somewhere that makes those. I haven't found them yet. Jostens doesn't, Life Touch, we use Strawbridge. They don't. But one of the things that I looked at, because I had heard this, and I remember at probably a USA convention a few years ago, I probably come across a company. It might have been this one company. This is the only company I know of right now. This it's called Rocket Alumni Solutions is the name of the company. But this thing is, I guess we're to the point. Okay, before I go to this digital solution, I guess the question would be that I'm posing to you guys, obviously in a report, not for action or anything tonight, so we can make our mind up later or next month or whatnot. But is it time we remove older classes and put them somewhere if we cannot, and slide everybody down? 1937 is the earliest class that is on the picture panel. Ness City High School first class, I think, was 1894 is what I found out. But so we don't have any record of those classes anyway, at least in photograph format anyway of those. But, and if, like I say, because what I'm getting ready to show you is pricey. It's pricey, and it's way overkill for what I was asking, because I'm like, okay, when I went to this Rocket Alumni Solutions, I found their ad, connected, had started having a meeting with our contact. This is a mega information board, just not for composite senior pictures. It's a digital hall of fame. And I say that digital history, which could be good or bad. But anyway, he put together a demo site for me. And obviously there's all sorts of things that it can do. The composite photos like what we're talking about right now would be down on the alumni side. If you click the alumni, and then there'll be a class composites. We would take our class composites that we have, and there's two ways to go about doing this. The first thing we would try to do is if we can take the photograph of the class composites without send them the digital and see what they can do. He was like, we got some very high tech graphic design, instruments that could make them look as good as they are right now. And we can have everything like that, and then we would just add it. It would be like we'd have our when I get to the bid part. I mean, you can go with a 45-inch, 55-inch, 65-inch television looking, but it's a touchscreen monitor. So it's just not a 55-inch TV. It is on that, but would have that. But the awesome thing about this is this information would not be tied to the hallway that we place this instrument in. It would be something you could have on your webpage. You can send that link out, and basically you could be in the hallway at Ness City looking at information on this touchscreen, or you can be in your living room with your cell phone looking at the exact same information. So it does make it global. And like I said, there's a whole lot of stuff besides class composites. I mean, there could be a whole lot of history from yearbooks to the alumni books that could be scanned into them. And so everybody would have digital copies of that. I don't know how long our yearbook has been digital, probably at least 10 years. So those would be probably pretty easy to get the digital copies of those yearbooks, I would hope, from Jostens yet, and put those yearbooks. I mean, so this will be a vast piece of equipment with a lot of information, the capacity to put a lot more information on it than we could. But your state champions, your all that, your record boards, I mean, this could encompass it all. And like I say, just not keep it in that hallway, it would be information that would be out there for the world to see. So it's like I say, obviously, he just put that together, that demo. There could be a whole lot of, I mean, more than ideas than I have. And like I say, he just, from setting up that meeting and to talking with them, and he put together this little Nest City demo site for us, which obviously there are not people from Nest City that shows, the faculty department, I could just imagine what kind of that would be to have the history of all staff that have worked for USD 303, and you would have all that. I mean, that would be some neat information to have. In addition to just all the classes and facilities like that. I say that because the price is pricey. The software fee, all this information is stored on their cloud. So if something would crash, obviously it would always be managed on their system right there. But the pricing guide, if we did a 3-year plan, would be just under $6,500 for the software. A 55-inch touchscreen is going to be just under $3,000. So we're looking at a $10,000 get started fee, basically. So it is pricey. The thing about it that I think could be something is a sponsorship guide. There's a few high schools in Kansas that have these. I have not reached out to any of them. I should have. Kingman High School, Great Bend High School. Now, I don't know if they have them for the class composites or if they have them like their athletic department has them as a record holding center and stuff like that. But, on this, your business sponsored here, powered by BTI. I guess I'm going off the radio. What, how Horsham says that, right? I mean, if they have that, and so when somebody pulls up, gosh, who graduated in 1988 from this city or whatever, they pull that link up on their phone, they'll see businesses or whatever. If we solicited business, similar to maybe what we did with the scoreboards a few years ago when, when Derek went and kind of put all that together, it could be there he's got the pricing guide. So it could be pretty pricey, but I don't know, something to think about. We have to do something. Like I say, I have not been able to figure out who sells those panels like we have them right now. I do know it'll be a whole new set, because if you are familiar with our South Hall, where they're at, the initial panel pictures on the east wall, that goes from 37 till about 85, 86. And then they obviously ran out of space there about the late 80s. And then they bought the one that goes now on the north wall and that looking north on that south wall. So there's two different composites that are up there. Now we have filled, oh gosh, that was probably 84. That's probably 40 years. There probably were 40-year. It started in 37 and went till that might have been a 50-year panel, and now we just used up the last year of a 40-year panel. So I don't know. And
Well, Tom,
we got a $1,500 discount by July 1 with the current quote that it gave me, but we can have something. Go ahead.
As far as this, not just for the record up there, I'm just thinking, that would be something that the yearbook content would be in, perhaps. Do we need to move away from a physical yearbook to where everything's online as part of this program? I mean, what do we spend a year on the yearbook? would it be, it probably wouldn't be too different from this.
$10,000.
I mean, I know
How
she
much?
puts all her stuff.
$8,000 to $10,000 that we
Yeah.
pay.
They're spending about 10,000 on a yearbook and I don't know,
Maybe so. That's, I mean,
I don't.
get innovated here. I don't know. Never
And
thought about
especially
that.
putting content on something like this, if we got it, who would do that? I mean, that could be a
Yeah.
easy shift over that your yearbook team or
Yeah.
whatever. All of a sudden is taking care of the web content.
And I won't speak for the museum, but I mean, I get phone calls at the library and sometimes which I have yearbook collection at the library. I mean, if that's digital and that could be something that I could link to on the library website, or the museum could access it too. I mean, that would extend the reach of it too. And I think people, I think you'd be surprised how many people would find something like that useful. But I wonder with Old Settlers coming up, if maybe that might be a chance to do like a fundraising drive for this thing.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm open to ideas, your thoughts on this. I just know we're out of room, so either we gotta bump some classes and move people down,
Tom,
or look for something, or look for another panel somewhere potentially. What's that?
this will be a yearly subscription, so like if you stop paying it for a year, you still get all your data in there to use.
Yes, I
You
would.
just don't get to upload anything else if
I-
you stop, I assume.
That's
Or
a
would
question I
they
just
take
ought to ask this Jeremiah,
Is that-
my contact, that he knows, I know he's gonna be calling me first thing tomorrow. He knows I have this meeting today. He's a salesman too. So that's
Say,
something,
did you understand that question? I mean,
yeah, if we
stop
drop our
paying it, is
subscription, we
what's
lose
there
all our
stay
data.
there, or we just, if we don't have access to it anymore.
Yeah, that'd be a question I'll ask him. What happens if we break away from our subscription, or don't decide not to renew?
I would guess it probably goes away, because essentially what you're doing is you're paying for space on their servers. And if we're not paying for that space, they're gonna give it to somebody else.
So that's something to think about too.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
other
I don't
thing I
think that
wonder
ever
where-
goes away, but
The other thing I would be curious about, I don't know how many companies like this are out there, but I would imagine if this is one of the first ones, there's going to start being more. And then that makes the pricing a little bit more competitive. But I would be curious to know, like, the equipment can only be used for their company, or if you can
Is there-
have that equipment installed and then eventually there's another company.
And I
that
can just
is
tell you
more-
from my searching, this is the only company that I see has anything like this, that no, this has been my internet searching. Maybe there's something out there, but this was the only one that I was able to find. And so, there's not much competition.
But I mean, so I guess what I'm
You could
curious
use
about
your
is
own.
once you put the hardware in, which eventually that's gonna have to be updated too, if it would only be useful for their software.
I would say no. And I base that solely off, this is a web-based, you'd be able to run on any machine you
Yeah.
wanted to. So I mean, you could buy a $600 80-inch TV, throw it up there with a CPU on it, and you could use a mouse
Sure.
to scroll through it using that as your monitor.
Well, even a
Um,
touchscreen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
and I
basically-
would say based on what the research I've done on touchscreen, big touchscreen TVs, that's about what they cost.
Yeah.
And that's why we're at the elementary, the TVs that we put in are just smart TVs, and then we're trying to supplement that with an iPad or something to where you can use the iPad as your touch piece to project up there. So. But no, I would say that you can use that piece of equipment in whatever you want, but it's gonna be like any piece of equipment, something that's gonna be out there in the hallway is gonna get touched by every single little kid. I would be concerned with the life of a touchscreen TV. I like the ability to put it online and make it available wherever. You can link it, like you said, to the library or to our own website and everything. And I think they've got the capabilities. You could send them every single yearbook that we have. They'll tear it apart, scan them in, and it's there.
Well, and I think I don't know how many of the yearbooks I have digitally done, but I have some of them
You do have-
digitally done at the library. I didn't do it. Jean sent them all to have them done. So I already have some of the yearbooks digitized. I don't know how many of them. I never looked through what's been done.
I'm trying to think what we have in our library right now, how far back the yearbooks go, but that would be that's good to know, because there seems to be one year that we seem to be missing. I remember,
And I don't have it every year. here at the library.
Yeah.
But the ones that I do have been digitized.
Isn't it one in the thirties? I think it's 1934.
We've got one that relatively new. It hasn't, it was like before I got here, but
It's missing.
yeah, like we don't have any extra copies of it.
Yeah, there's a year that
Late two
when Colleen
thousands.
was here, she was, I don't know if somebody came and checked it out and never got back or what, but I want to say somewhere like in the 70s or 80s, there was a year missing from our library. So hopefully she may have it at the public. I'm not sure.
And they've got them at the museum too.
But I don't know. I just throw this out there as part of my report to let you chew on. Because I know something's gonna have to happen. I just don't know exactly.
I mean, for 1 year here, you can bump a year or whatever and put up the standard stuff, but I mean, something like this would be more, I would think we want to look at that more for phasing out the physical yearbook rather than just the stuff up in the high school.
I'd be interested, kind of, to add to some of these other questions. If 10 years from now, we had a class that decided to take this on and just do this themselves, if we could build upon this, or if we lost all of this, because it may be something in 10 years from now,
Well,
we have a classic or a yearbook
I
may
could
become
see
this.
just uploading data, the time it would take to upload information to this, add to it. I mean,
Yeah, you have to
for
have
back to everything, we've never had a school historian that I'm aware, and it's sad that there's probably a lot of history been lost with a lot of different, changes in, I won't say coaches or athletic directors and stuff like that through the years, because I couldn't tell you who holds the scoring record for men's basketball from S City High School. I don't know if we know. We don't know who, and I say that, I go back several years, been in class of 17. I remember Chandler Stywalt went over 1,000, and I just kind of, it's 1,000 points for his career. And I know we've had a few kids do that since then, but I'm like, where's he stand in history of Ness City? We don't know. I don't think there were good records. There were some dang good teams, obviously in that what was it, 71 team, 72, 73, somewhere. But, those are records that we don't, we have a track record board that I think is pretty accurate. But there's nothing for, I mean, and those are just things that we just, there's never been I say a historian. I don't know if that's the correct term for a position, but somebody that has just always took, and not saying, and that would be the sad thing about this is we go to some sort of technology like this, but yet we may not have record of all this individual state champions.
You'd have to hire somebody if yearbook didn't do it to do it.
Yeah.
Ashley
Well,
just started getting that.
But yeah,
The
it would,
website was-
but so I could just see an
Better
initial
now.
class right now, just, gosh, let's go get all these, because we're scanning yearbooks in, if we're trying to do it ourselves, because a lot of it, to try to save probably money, would be to, we have the scanner, we can scan pages, we can build, scan documents, upload it, here's the yearbook from 1940 or whatever, and,
Is there,
but that would be a lot of time, a lot of, that maybe that we could put students in.
a question maybe for him too would be, can we get like the minimum? So that then, like, to start out with, we're just doing the panels. And then maybe at Old Settlers, that's up and running so people can look at it.
Yeah.
And then you can get sponsors for it to go further. Is there a way that this salesman will let you just do?
But I would like to think going digital would make it more utilized. I mean, I expect obviously next year in June, there'll be a lot of traffic in our South Hall. People will be coming and flipping through the panels. It would be pretty awesome if they had And all of a sudden they know I can take this with me. I scan it and I got it on my phone forever. And, you know, when anything that adds to it, I mean, I just, I think that could be, so, but I don't know. I see a lot of work too. But throw that out there. I know we gotta do something and I, like I said, I haven't, I need, you know, maybe I go to state track here in a couple weeks. I'll stop by Kingman High School and see if I can see what theirs look like. And I say that may just be by their athletic department, because that's what, if you look at the references that they have, lots of colleges. And I'm guessing they probably put that in their sports information offices and stuff like that. No, it's, you know, because you got all the history of, you know, KU basketball or whatnot. I'm guessing that's where that was probably developed for something like that. And now it's just, but it's, they can take a lot of stuff.
And if we're wanting to do something different besides the panels, like why couldn't we do like the TVs that they have at the clinic, at the hospital and stuff, that's constantly flipping through some promotional ads or something? Like, why couldn't we do that with the panels instead of doing this? And then it just, it's like just flip through it. It's on like a timer and it'll flip to the next class. If we can't find those panels. And then we could look at doing, if the athletics department, the athletics wants to do something like that.
Yeah.
Then they could raise some of the money for it. Or if the yearbook wants to do something like that. I don't know if
That
that
would
would,
stay on your kiosk.
Yeah.
In your iPad, you wouldn't be able to take it anywhere.
well, yeah, I mean, and then
If you're
it
talking about
keeps
having it
kids
remote.
from messing around
It's
on it.
probably on
in
some
the
sort of
hallway.
a PowerPoint that's just
Yeah,
running on
yeah.
loop.
They're on like kiosk iPads. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
It'd be similar to the TV that Yearbook does now that sits outside Don's room in the hallway down to the cafeteria. That's
Yeah.
what it does. It just rotates
Yeah.
through.
You just wouldn't be able to take it mobile. I mean, that's a good idea because that'd be a less expensive solution to our immediate problem.
Mhm.
But if I'm looking for 1936 and I have to wait 10 minutes to get back to it, I'd
Or
be
if we-
like, I'm not waiting.
Or if we could get a QR code to the
Might not move
PowerPoint
that.
or
That's right, it
whatever.
might not move that
And then they
long.
could just scan the QR code with their phone and they could flip to whatever year they want to look at.
Let's say you could make it a Google presentation. You know, people can access.
Yeah.
Moving on. Okay, I think there's, as you notice now, there's an agenda item. So I don't think we need to discuss a whole lot right now, but I'll just let you know where that agenda item later on comes to is obviously in my, I guess, quest to find a head football coach, high school, you know, PE teacher, AD, everything like that. There's, you know, been lots of conversations, I guess, with lots of different people calling different coaches, ADs, principals and stuff like that, trying to find names of people that are good and stuff like that. But some of those conversations have led to some informal conversations with Western Plains. And right now it's kind of led to more just football about a potential cooperative agreement. So that's why that item is on your agenda later on. I think we'll probably discuss that as a board later on, but I'll just give you the reason that's why that ended up on your agenda, and we'll talk about that further on there. But I did want to just kind of bring that to attention. And then the last thing is, I really thought we would have state assessment results, at least the preliminary results for today, but I don't. So I got to scratch that part off my awards for tomorrow for junior high awards, because I had hoped to have results and acknowledge some kids for this work they did this school year, but I guess we'll have to wait on that because I'm still waiting on anything like that. So, which I kind of hate, because I really like to include that state assessment report, parent report that goes home and put it in the last, and maybe we'll get it by the end of the week when we send out report cards. I don't know. But so eagerly waiting to see how we did this spring in our testing. I don't know. Well, guess we'll see. But I think that's it for my report.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Flats? Mr. Reiner?
First Thursday, we'll serve all staff a meal for lunch on the workday. We are all more than welcome to come up at noon. We've
What day
got
is that?
Thursday,
This one?
this coming Thursday.
Oops.
We have leftover steak and everything from the beef that we buy for the cafeteria. So we'll be serving steaks and baked potatoes, and I'm not for sure what else you guys have put together, but it'll be a really nice meal.
Surprise.
Hopefully, it's all tasty. I'm sure it will be. So I've mentioned in my notes on Friday that Susie and I have been banging our head against the wall with what wonderful state and federal government when it comes to our ESSER funds. We had set aside a lot of that stuff for like when we put in the new control, the thermostats in the elementary school classrooms. The work we did to get started on the outdoor classroom at the high school, the work we did in the library. When all that stuff came out, I believe it was $250,000 that projects had to be before the feds wanted a whole bunch of extra paperwork. Well, here, probably 45 days ago, 60 days ago, we started getting notifications that no, if it's $1,000 project, you have to have all of this paperwork and everything. Well, we all know that Clyde did the concrete work. He's not around anymore. So to get paperwork from him would be impossible. A lot of the paperwork, big companies, Bacon Davis Act, showing and proving that they're paying employees a certain wage and those type of things. Well, we could probably get that from P1 and those type of things, but from some of our smaller contractors, it may be awful hard for them to do it. Plus, we also learned that any of those things that you did, you had to go to the Register of Deeds and put the federal government on the deed for the school because they now own a percentage of the school because you use federal dollars to make those improvements. So as we're digging into that and the work we had to do, Historical Society had to give us a letter saying that we weren't disturbing any historical grounds. NCRS and them came up and they were going to do a report saying that we weren't changing the environment detrimentally. So instead of trying to put all that together, which would have been nearly impossible, we went through and basically decided we're going to change or redirect those funds. So what you have in there, we have ESSER $1 that because we put water bottle filling stations, so new water fountains in the school, not that we put water fountains in places they've never been, we replaced old water fountains with new water fountains that have bottle fill stations on them. That fell into changing the physical structure of your building. So we took that $2,100 out of ESSER 1 and moved that to PPE supplies. So basically, it's a dollar for dollar change within capital outlay dollars for those two things. That's pretty simple. As we looked at ESSER 2, we had about $39,000 that we had to change within that. That was the pneumatic controls. So the thermostats in the elementary school and the construction of the library where we built the computer lab, put the new wall up. We took that and are swapping it out. So the Chromebooks that you approved a couple months ago that were going to come out of capital, we'll pay for that out of ESSER $2. The Fast Bridge and the assessment testing and some of our online curriculum stuff that we paid for with capital dollars, we'll reassign that to ESSER 2. And then our ELA curriculum, a portion of it that we paid for using capital dollars will come out of that. So dollar for dollar change. And then ESSER 3, we had 65.5 set aside. We had not spent all that. I think we'd only spent about 30 of that. So we went through and reclassified that. We've got the summer school that I've got for you to approve will come out of ESSER $3 for this summer. Summer school from last year we'll take out of that. Our math curriculum that you approved for 9-12 here a couple months ago will come out of that instead of capital dollars. And then all the rest of it is maintenance, cleaning supplies, and those type of things that have come out of capital dollars. So basically, we just went through and reclassified what we're taking out of ESSER versus non-ESSER. So in all reality, it on the books, it shouldn't change a whole lot. We'll actually free up a little bit more capital dollars because of the Chromebooks and those type of things that we're going to have to take out of capital to help pay for a portion of that, which will also free up some of the funds for what's the federal dollars? The REAP dollars that we use to pay for a portion of the capital dollar or the Chromebooks. So that's what that's all about. Just a lot of fun to deal with that. Russell brought up the fence or why we're the amount of money coming out of the softball fund. We got the fence. I thought maybe we'd be able to build our own trailer. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to do some looking into buying a trailer for that fence. It makes a little bit more sense. Right now, the rec department is allowing us to use one of their trailers that they don't use a whole lot of. But at some point in time, we need to have our own trailer. We need to have a better storage solution for that fence. So I'm going to look into it. And the last thing I have, my new neighbors down the street put a new sprinkler system in the yard, and my wife, being the nosy person that she can be sometimes, I hope she's not listening, went down and asked them because we had a couple issues with our sprinkler system, and they came over and did their magic and fixed the things I couldn't figure out how to fix on it. I asked him to look at the football field. He went up and looked at the football field because we're constantly having problems with it. We dump a lot of water on that field, spend a lot of money for their constantly issues and the field not to look good. He put together a proposal for $6,400. Right now, I know we have one valve that is slightly open, so if the water's running, the sprinkler's running, which is a problem. So for $6,400, he'll come in and put new valves in. He'll readjust all the sprinkler heads. He'll replace up to 6. He thinks there's only 6 that truly need to be replaced. But he'll adjust them all. He'll put the right inserts in to make sure that we're getting things watered the way they're supposed to. We push enough water through there, we should be able to put a much larger insert in there to allow more gallons per minute to come through the sprinkler head. And hopefully that'll get us back into where maybe we're not spending so much money on water on the football field and the field looks good. I think as he does that, he'll also make sure all the sprinkler heads are sunk properly because we've got a couple of them that are starting to stick up. But before that, I told him to go ahead and do that, which he said he could probably do in the next couple of weeks. I wanted to present that to you and you tell me whether or not you want to do that.
You say inserts that would allow more water to go through, but then also saying we'd be using less water.
Well, so the way it works in those sprinkler heads, you can set the insert to where it pushes out a certain gallons per minute. My understanding is if you've got the water pressure and the amount of water, you can put a much larger in there, which is going to spread more water. So you don't run your sprinklers as long.
You can run them at night then instead of during the heat of the day probably as well. That would save water. Just like irrigating. We may make that money back.
That would be my hope. Especially, I mean, yeah, and that's the bigger problem is we do have a valve that is leaking, so we have to physically go in there and shut the water on and off if the sprinkler system is not running at that particular point in time. But I thought for $6,400, if that solves some major problems, it's probably money well worth spending.
You need a motion on that?
I just need consensus because we're at $6,400, not over 20.
I'm fine with it.
I'll get them going. That's all I've got.
Any questions?
I have a question, kind of a follow-up of our teachers there. Would it be worth a conversation with Mr. Kerr that if we needed something built, maybe to halt the tiny house for a year and have him build us something to fill a need that we have at the school?
So he and I have been talking, and I think he wants to put a halt to the tiny house anyway, at least
Get a break.
for a break from it. Whether we come back to it or not is a good question. We've had some conversations. We really haven't solidified what exactly it is that next step is. We had talked about having his class go out and remodel the football concession stand. Is that something that needs to be
That
done?
would be.
I think there are some pieces in there that the floor isn't necessarily level. So we would probably want to float concrete and level the floor so we can put cabinets the kids built in there and make it nice. But a shed or a building maybe between the greenhouse and the art room wall, that could be something else that they look at too. A place for some more storage and stuff. I'll tell you, and if he's listening, I'll tell it to his face. My concern with storage and Mr. Kerr is if you build storage, he will fill it up. So we would want to make sure that we use it and it gets designated properly. And he knows that I would say that to him, so. But no, that could be something, like I said, he and I haven't had enough time to sit down and talk about what's next, but I don't think they're planning on building a tiny house next year. At least off the conversations that we've had over the last couple months. So whether it's a shed or a remodel of the
What about if we need a trailer for panels? What about asking our ag class if somebody wanted to donate the money for the trailer to get the parts, have them just build one as a project as well?
Well, and that's where we started, and I drew one up, and I thought I had a couple boys that were gonna do that, and then that kind of fell apart. So with the barn being done, kind of depends on who's in that class. That could be something we do.
Okay.
I just know any of those projects like that, you think, well, it shouldn't take that long to do. But when you've only got 35 minutes a day to work on it, it takes forever. I know 2 young men that graduated on Saturday that will never build a trailer again, probably because of what they did for me. But it's a great experience for them. We've got kids that can do that.
We remodel concession stand. Will that guarantee me a hamburger?
I tell you what, they made a bunch of money Thursday.
Could have made a bunch more. Any other questions? Board subcommittee. Is there any open session stuff, or do we go straight to executive session?
No, it's almost all open, right?
I need to go to executive session.
Well, let's hear the open report first here.
Let's do that. So you guys all got your notes from Susie, so you saw the overview of what was discussed, but Lori saw.
Well, some of it they kind of touched on, and the teachers did in their, whatever that was called, building needs.
Building needs assessment.
One of those things being science and social studies curriculum. It's one of the things that the elementary school staff particularly ask for. And I know it's been talked about, but that was one thing that they referenced in that tonight. And then, and this was kind of a big thing from them, is the walkthroughs. And Emily referenced that as well in a presentation that's being done, but the feedback that they're getting from that, they don't necessarily find worthwhile, useful, implementable. So those were 2 things. And accountability was the first thing that they talked about. And I mean, applied to students, parents, staff, admin, enforcing, following policy, particularly enforcing it. Cell phones was one of the things that they mentioned. And I think they're and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that, leaning more and more towards they just don't want, like, just get rid of them in the building during the day. And just be done with it. The healthcare, which Colin touched on tonight, and I think we'll get into that with negotiations on those two, that grandfathered versus non-grandfathered plan. And I need to do some more reading up on that too.
Chronic absentee was discussed. The need for the discipline to be enforced for chronic absenteeism. That's what I gathered.
One thing on healthcare that we need to be concerned about, and you guys will work on this in your negotiation stuff, but the concern was you try to save money on healthcare, you're gonna lose your staff because they can go to a local district. And so there are some staff members who require more healthcare than others, and so it's a tricky place.
And I would say
Healthcare
that the
is.
ones that are really not utilizing it very much. Just it's an automatically, yeah, whatever you want to do, yeah, whatever you want to do, but the ones that do need it and are paying more attention to it are maybe seeing problems with it. And so maybe that needs to be dug in a little bit deeper as far as the healthcare. But it sounds like it needs to be something we have to address for very long anyway. But there are some of them that feel very strongly about the healthcare thing.
I have a couple if you're done too.
Well, I'm sure some of ours cross reference. So go ahead and whatever you don't touch on.
So it was brought up on days with track meets. It's difficult to get enough subs.
For activities like Scholars Bowl.
Yeah, high school's gone,
Yeah.
grade school's still there.
And
I think
like where the high school is out of school for the day, maybe just if we can, the grade school
Yeah.
doesn't go that day either, and then you have that staff to utilize over there. If that was.
And I don't have a
option.
problem with that. We just never done that.
Yeah,
here.
why, and then, I think Susie had mentioned that we count them different. Why do we count them different?
Well, if the high school is out, those hours don't count towards their 11-16.
So then
So that
why,
the elementary has more hours during the school year because of those handful of days.
all right, so that the elementary is doing more hours.
Yeah.
But they don't have to.
But as far
Is
as
that
meeting the
what-
11-16, no, they do not.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, like, how are they not the same? Okay.
What it comes down to is how many student days do you want in the calendar?
Okay.
And what are those kids doing during that time? You're throwing it back on parents. It doesn't matter to me. I'm at work either way.
Well, that was something that they were concerned about because trying to find subs
Mm-hmm.
to cover for them, because they have to cover things for the,
and as well as staff not being around.
yeah.
Or
Mhm.
you guys maybe not being around because you're helping to do something.
Yeah.
So another one that I had was, it sounded like there was maybe some interest in an in-house teacher mentor program. So there were some comments from some newer teachers that said that they had, whatever you do, you guys tell them what they need to do, but there are some teachers that made examples of where they had been at other schools. They had a mentor teacher that they utilized the entire first year,
And I
like a
think-
buddy system thing, and so they could use them.
And I think they said that person was like, it was an extra, so they got paid. Was it
They got a
1,000?
stipend for that. If somebody
1,000
wanted-
extra,
Something
but
like
they
that.
were the mentor for that, and it helped them so much to. So.
I gathered that communication in the grade school needs to be worked on a little bit. The teachers from the high school made a comment that they felt the communication there was adequate. So.
Anything else to report?
Retaining, holding back kids is something that the grade school staff seems to feel pretty strongly about, that we're not doing that. And maybe that it would be helpful, particularly at the younger grades. And I mean, we had a conversation about the parents have to.
And is that
agree
the
to that
way
and that
it
kind of
works?
thing,
Like,
but-
to retain a student, the parents have to sign off on that.
Yes and no. You know, it becomes whether or not you want to deal with a fight, if it's a parent that's gonna fight. If you look at actual policy, it comes down to teacher recommendation and principal approval.
And some of
on
them
those type
said
of
that
things.
they maybe marked retain on end of the year grade cards and then nothing ever
We've
comes,
talked about,
has come of it.
we've had several conversations and we've talked to parents about it. I would say this year is probably the first year where we have a parent that is requesting that that be done. There's some other things that fall into it. Special ed department doesn't like it when that happens, especially if it's a special ed kid, so there's a fight there.
I'll throw my 2 cents on the retainment. And I don't know who you're talking about or anything, I mean, with the kids, but I want a secondary spin on it. Okay, we talk about retaining that, especially younger ages, and that's fine and dandy because of the mental state that they may enter or cognitive and everything like that. But then you realize if you hold them back and then they get to 8th grade and they're 15, 16 years, 17 years old already. And all of a sudden now you hit a maturity way difference. Throw in the age factor of age rules for any extracurriculars, because if they're 15 before before August 1st of their 8th grade year, they're ineligible for junior high activities. They're too old. If they're 19 as a senior before August 1st, they're done. Their eligibility is over with. And I say that it doesn't need to be activities, but I'm just saying, I really don't like 19-year-old seniors. I think you understand why. When we have a bunch of them, and then all of a sudden, if you have 19 turning 20-year-old seniors, because that happened. So I just hope that understand the need for that, but it can catch up, and a lot of times they won't finish school.
You gotta be
When
real
they're old
careful.
enough, they'll be gone before they get much high school education.
You've got to be real careful in that. The research in retention has changed here just, you know, within the last year and a half. Because a lot of the research would tell you that any kid that's retained, there's a much higher percentage chance that they don't graduate. Well, what they have found by actually analyzing that data is if you have a strong academic program for those kids, then they are more likely, if you take a kid that is more likely going to fail and not graduate anyway, and you retain them at a young age, kindergarten first, maybe 2nd grade, and you have a proper plan of action, education program for them, then their likelihood of graduating actually increases. But what traditionally happens is you retain a kid and then you basically are doing the exact same thing with them that you did the year before. And that's the kid needs more than so it really comes down to that.
And I'm not saying I'm against retaining kids. I mean, I don't want to create a
And I-
rift
and I
with
can see-
elementary staff. If they
I
need,
can
if they
see
didn't
your
meet the
point
expectation and
about
get promoted,
the
I'm on board with that. I just realized that domino's gonna fall and kick a few more down the road. It just might be.
The vast majority of your kids, 1 year retention isn't going to affect what he's talking about. It's when you have 2 years of retention or a kid that starts kindergarten late. If mom and dad hold them out, it doesn't start until they're 6, and then you retain, then you start running into problems at the junior high school level with those type of things.
Well, it's something that they were concerned about, so something for you guys to think about. Another thing was that they would appreciate team building, that type of activities. And I don't know, we don't have a ropes course here. So you're not gonna take them out on a ropes course. But some kind of team building activities, because they don't feel like they're a team.
And I think what I wrote down, and I think it was pertaining to that conversation, is like trust is lacking between staff to staff and then staff to admin in situations. And I think a lot of that goes back to communication, and that's a piece that we've talked to a lot with this,
And they had seemed to indicate that that had gotten better, but I felt like this meeting seemed like it had regressed a lot. And I don't know that it's necessarily them, like you needing to tell them when you're not going to be here, that kind of thing. But like some of the examples I have written down is like finding things out on Facebook. So for example, that a softball game has been canceled and the coach finds it out on Facebook rather than finding it out from admin. And then like I have not communicating in detail or particular to what matters. So the example that they had with that was, you know, like a child goes to the principal for discipline and they don't feel like maybe what discipline took place or what the protocol is going to be moving forward to try and correct the behavior is necessarily communicated back to the teacher very well.
And then we need 5 minutes of executive session without you two first and then. So make a motion that we have 5 minutes of executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
No.
I move for 5 minutes in executive.
Second.
Everybody.
For on
For
personnel,
student
On
matter.
student matter.
Student matter.
Second, all those in favor?
Oh, and the last thing on that committee thing was, we talked about the quarterly meetings for next school year. And then also, I think I would like to step down from that committee now that I'm doing negotiations. So I didn't know, I know Shelby's doing special ed, you two will probably stay on that committee. So I don't know if one of the other three of you
I would
want
be
to
interested.
take
in-
my spot on that committee.
There
So
you go.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good.
I know I did have a couple staff members ask, could they just rotate? And I don't know
Well,
if that's
and-
something you'd be
and
interested in
talking
doing.
about that as well.
but
The staff or us?
No, us
You
rotate.
guys, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that, I think
that
that
way
was brought
you
up
all
there.
have the opportunity, but I know a
So
couple
maybe
staff
next
members
year,
brought
if you
that
two
up to
want to
me.
stay and McKenna joins, and then after next year, one of you could
Come off.
stuff,
Yeah.
maybe we could do something like that.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be a little bit, I mean, it needs to be the same for a little while so that if one issue's addressed here, and then we address it here, we can see if it, some cohesiveness to it, but
You said, you just want me to set 4?
That's what they said quarterly.
Okay.
First bring it up, and then if they say, well, cool, we don't have to do it, but at least ask them, order it. And then
yeah, if
I'll
there's
step down after
nothing
the end
that
of next
they,
year, so that'll give us our rotation.
if they don't feel like there needs to be a meeting, then I don't know, on our end, that we need to have one, but at least extend the invitation to them quarterly.
Well, if we could, let's move on to facilities improvement bond issue.
We did our walkthrough. We had 8 or 10 people here, walk through everything, several
I was
engineers.
expecting a text and I never got one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was like, is that today?
No, I'm sorry.
I know that's okay.
But we walked through everything, talked through everything. He was hoping maybe the June meeting, he would have a compilation of stuff with some general assessment of dollars. I told him the dollar is a very important piece that we need as far as here's a list of the things we know, we feel has to be addressed. Here's some dollars in general per square footage type of thing to address these issues would be, and then we can kind of from there have a conversation of what is that next step. That's kind of where we're at now.
So the walkthrough was his team and you? then?
Yeah, so myself and Dan walked through with us because Jack hadn't started yet. And like I said, there's electrical engineer, a mechanical engineer, architect. There was 8, yeah. I said 8 or 10 different people that walked through and looked through everything, and a couple of them went on their own and just every little nook and cranny they were looking at. So I think they did a good job as far as looking at everything. And then we talked through several things that we've discussed. I made sure they had all the lists of things that we've put together and discussed in the meetings too. So
Okay, so we look forward in June to a list and approximate prices. Any questions? On the calendar,
So you've got 2. The 2 were presented to the staff. One is a earlier start, one is a later start. Threw it out to all the staff that has voted, 90% of them want calendar number 1. Now, my one question for you, based off of some things that we've talked about tonight and some things that you got from your communication meeting, some of the team building stuff and some of those type of things, some of the things that we need some time to do, changes the calendar a little bit, because we probably need another couple half days, or which we kind of got away from because it caused some problems with some of our kids. Another day or two of in service. And then you throw in, Tom, as far as the days that are, we let out school early for 7/12. We've got the Scholars Bowl that we host,
We do our doubleheader Scholars Bowl. We let out at 1:30 on that day.
and then junior high track meet that we host,
We let out at 12:30 on that
and
day.
then the high school track meet.
We let out at 2:30.
Okay,
And we
So-
won't be hosting the league again.
we won't be hosting league, and we won't be hosting, I mean, this year was pretty heavy, because didn't we host League Scholars Bowl and our league too? Or our league Scholars Bowl, was that this year? Because we seem to have a lot this year.
We do host that a lot. We either get that or the regional. It seems like you're right. I won't say this.
So those things need to be
Linda does such a
taken into
good job.
consideration too. You've got kind of a blank canvas. 90% of your staff that's voted want that early start, early release. Where we build the calendar off of is it's a negotiated 180-day contract. I think with the negotiations, we try to do 170 days of student contact days. I mean, if you look, I think we're at 168, 169, 166 and a half, maybe it's 165 that we shoot for. We start throwing in some of the things we've talked about. Those days fit in there too. The other thing that fits in there, or the only real concern is coming back from Christmas break on a Monday. That is probably the one thing staff pointed out the most that they don't really like. I understand that, coming back from a long break and having a full week. It's just, where does that break up? So if we don't come back Monday, we come back Tuesday, then at the end of the year, the teachers are coming back on a Monday for a work day after the last day of school. Last day of school is on a Friday. If we come back to Tuesday, then the last day of school is on a Friday, and or on the next Monday, we just keep pushing those type of things around a little bit. So you have some authority within that to say, we like this calendar, but we want to take off a day or two here and reduce the contract or whatever, as far as what the calendar is going to look like. A lot of times when we develop the calendar, Christmas falls on a funny day, it throws things off. And that's probably the biggest thing, is the Christmas date. Depending on what day of the week it is, it kind of really can throw things off a little bit. And this calendar is that. So we really need to approve a calendar. Specifically, we need our start date so that I can get some of the stuff scheduled as far as in-service days and begin the school year days for some of the in-services that we've talked about tonight.
How does that work, Derek? Like, for example, if a track meet or Scholars Bowl is at noon, 12:30, and you don't have school at the high school, so then that's chalked up as a half a day extra for a grade school teacher versus a high school teacher?
Well, technically, they're
Still
on
on duty
contract
till 4.
because they're
Different
still
duty.
on duty.
Okay.
We usually tell them you have two choices. You can either go work the track meet, or you can help somewhere, like Mara Hamel is a prime example, and Tanya Finley, this last track meet. Those two came over and helped.
So for some parents that were gone.
They sub
one day.
instead of going and helping, because the bigger problem we run into with subs is when we have elementary teachers who are also parents that have junior high or high school kids, they want to go to the track meet. A lot of them will go out and help, but they want to attend the track meet, so they miss all that time too. So teachers can either come over and help and sub, so that can happen, or they're working at the track meet.
What are your guys'
That's where the
thoughts on those
subs-
days? Should we
It
make an
doesn't-
adjustment to them then?
It doesn't matter to me. Your bigger problem is daycare and input that you might get from a parent, because what do I do with my kid for half a day or whatever? That's going to be your argument. When we all were in school, and maybe not you, but it was snow days. We had to have so many snow days. Well, now it's hours, and we've got more than enough hours for probably at least two weeks of snow days. So it's not that we have to worry about snow days, as far as making those things up. It's meeting the needs of our parents up against meeting the needs of our staff. I understand why the elementary staff has a problem with, we're in a classroom with a group of kids, they're out there attracting.
And I don't know,
It wasn't
I don't know
that.
that I don't think they look at it from that perspective. Some of it was subs.
Cause it's hard to get
Because
some.
like
It
one
is.
of them has a
There
kid that
is.
wants to go.
Well,
Well,
That
that's
is-
important.
No,
And so,
absolutely.
and so I
Or they're
think
working
really,
that event.
I think, or they, to help with that event too. I don't think it was at all from the perspective of they're playing around and we're not. Like, I don't think it was seen as that at all.
I don't want to give the perception that that's what I was meaning.
Right.
The difference between working at a track meet and working in the classroom.
I
What was that?
understand
But
that.
yeah, I
understand
don't,
that. Yes.
they're out there working. I didn't want to leave that perception.
Well, if we have to vote, I'd say we vote on the one that they want for the start date.
And I don't know, I'm trying to listen and look
Oh,
at
sorry,
this
go
too
ahead.
and analyze something. Is like for that Christmas break thing.
Mhm.
Like the 20th is the last day for students and a Friday, and then we're making them come back the 23rd.
So
Is like getting out at noon for the students and then a half day workday.
So the way the negotiated agreement is set, we have a day at the beginning and a day at the end
Right,
of the Christmas break, and they get to choose which one they do.
right. But, I don't want to speak for what they have to get done, because I know in their classroom, they've got to finish things up and then get ready. But is like on the 20th with going half a day with students and then having the rest of the day as a work day, and then they don't have to come back on the 23rd, would that work?
We are required by negotiated agreement to give them a full day.
Okay,
So I don't think they necessarily argue with that, but that does not follow negotiated agreement, which
Okay.
then you could have a grievance for. If you're just giving them a half day to count towards their contract.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. If it makes teachers mad, it makes them mad, whatever, but I really believe if they know they're getting 2 full weeks off, they'll power through for a full week back. That first week of January. I'm looking at you too, because you're the only two that stayed around.
well, I guess that's why I was,
I mean,
And I'm not
it's gonna be a
saying
long
something
week.
we're
We all know
doing every
that.
year,
We've been in there that
just
first week back, but
because
we typically don't have 2 weeks for a break.
just to compensate for that, that way they wouldn't have to come back on that Monday, and yeah, a full week, that first week isn't that much fun, but it doesn't happen every year. I mean, that's just the way the calendar falls this year.
Again, I'm working, so it doesn't matter to me. You're going to see a similar calendar next year because
Christmas falls.
of where Christmas falls.
Right,
That Wednesday, Thursday is always a problem with Christmas, because if you, next year, you move Christmas to Thursday, and now you come back to school on that Monday to get your days in or not, those type of things. So your 2 weeks of Christmas vacation, you're coming back on a Monday to start off that second semester. So there's some problem. I mean, that's part of the problem with where Christmas falls.
and I guess I was just thinking like that way, if they want to travel, they don't have to stick around and work on that Monday.
Well, and they don't have to, because they don't have to work that Monday. They can come back and work.
Work. So
The-
they only
the
have to work
third.
One of those.
Yeah, they
days.
only have to work one of those 2 days.
They've got it easy.
This is good enough to approve calendar 1 and whatever minor adjustments you can bring up later. The motion.
Make the motion, we approve calendar 1. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Oh, with the adjustments that.
I will work on putting those
Did I
together
need
so
to
you can
say
see.
that
what
in my
those are.
No, we'll
Okay.
bring them up
All
later.
right, okay.
Hey, enrollment numbers.
So as part of the new open enrollment policy, we have to set numbers. So where we're kind of setting it right now, technically, we don't have to do anything with preschool. I think it's nice for us to have in policy that this is what it is. What these numbers mean is when the enrollment of that class hits that number, no out-of-district kids can enroll in that class anymore. At the high school level, it's based off of like the biology and chemistry room. That's how many seats are in that room. You can't put any more seats in that room. The rest of them are like art is space, but like weights, metal shop, and the wood shop, it is more of a safety issue. So while we may have 16, 17 kids in that classroom, we are making sure we leave space open for our kids to actually live within our district boundaries. Right? At the kindergarten through 8th grade level, by setting it at 20, what that means is once we hit 20, if you're an out-of-district kid, there's not a space for you. Right? So we give all of our in-district kids a slot, their spot, their seat in that classroom. And once we hit 20, we may have 22, 23 kids in the classroom, but if we hit that, then out-of-district kids can't be a part of that. And they have to, the policy right now is by June 10th or something, they have to notify us that they are interested and there's a lottery and a drawing. So as you look at that, right now, if we're looking at 20 per session, next year, based off of our current numbers, the only class that affects will be kindergarten. If we're able to find an actual kindergarten teacher to split the class, then you've got slots for 40 kids. But right now, it looks pretty slim. We are working on a potential help in there, but it's not necessarily a full-fledged teacher in that sense. Right now, there are 23 students enrolled for kindergarten. 6 of those are out-of-district students. I believe that there is 1 in-district kid that will be leaving us. So technically, I believe there will be slots for 4 out-of-district kids in that kindergarten class if we don't find a teacher that we could split. So that's kind of a real life example of what's going to happen. So the way it breaks down by law and by our policy then is students, out-of-district students that have a sibling that's already in the district get first billing. So irregardless of who that kid is, if they've got a sibling that's an older sibling that's already in the district, or I guess even a younger sibling, if we use this year's 6th grade class, if this would have been in place, slot opened up in 6th grade for an out-of-district kid, and they've got a sibling that was in 1st grade, that kid would have got first billing. After that, then we look at our breakdown of what allows you into the district. So if you've got chronic absenteeism, if you've been in trouble, if you're not completing your work, not necessarily, it's not that you're on an IEP or that you're struggling or you're low performing, it's that you just don't do anything, and that's why you're failing classes. Those kids get kicked out. And then what's left, if there's more kids than slots, then it is a random draw. And we pull out of a hat and that kid gets a slot. We notify parents. So as we do this, my recommendation is what's on there. So kindergarten through 8th grade will be 20 kids per session. Again, that doesn't necessarily limit us to 20 if we have more than 20 in-district kids. It means once we hit 20 in-district kids, there are no slots for out-of-district kids. Or once we hit 20, there's no slots for out-of-district kids, right? Preschool at 17, again, we don't necessarily have to set preschool, but I think it's nice for us to have on the books that is what we're doing, because we are having more and more people wanting to join our preschool program from out of district and out of county. And that gives us some guidance there. That leaves us with 3 additional slots because we've already predetermined that preschool is 220 section, a morning and afternoon as far as capacity. So that leaves us some room there. So my recommendation are the numbers there. I do need some guidance as far as what you want me to do with kindergarten, which could bleed over to our next 8.2, which is at some level of moot point if we're not going to split them anyway. But my recommendation will be those numbers as far as setting our out of district max capacities. And then any input you want to give me on what you want me to do with next year's kindergarten class.
What's the, for years and years and years, mentality has been get out of district kids for the money here. What's changing here?
So the law has changed. We've always wanted to take the kids. The problem we're running into is staffing. So I would have, prior to this year, I would have said, we don't need to set a number. And then we ran into what we ran into with 6th grade. And then all of a sudden, we've got 27 kids in 6th grade classroom. We can't find a teacher to split that classroom. It definitely needed to be split. And of those 27, I believe 8 or 9 of them are out of district kids.
So if we set these numbers, or we're gonna be turning 7 kids away?
If we set these numbers right now, I believe we'll turn 2 away.
Well, if it's 20 and there's 27.
Well,
I'm
but
planning
you're
on
gonna
two
have 2
sections in
sections of
7th
7th grade next year. He's already got that set, so you're good there. 7th and 8th grade is good. It's
2
it's our
sessions, so we
elementary.
can go to 4.
Yeah.
But you said kindergarten would be 4 kids you'd have to turn away?
Right now, there's 3. I believe 1 in-district kid is leaving, so there would be 2. There are 23 kids that attended our preschool. 6 of those kids are out of district kids. So by setting this at 20, 3 of those kids would lose a slot here. If that 1 in-district kid leaves, which I think is going to happen from what I've been told by parents, then 2 of those kids that attend preschool with us would not get to come to school here as kindergartners.
Do their parents already know that?
No, because it hasn't been determined who it is. Now, I believe out of that group of 6, there are 3 that have siblings that will be enrolled. A couple that have attendance issues in preschool that can throw them out. So that very well could leave 1 or 2 that, like I said, technically, if everything happens the way I think it's going to happen, you're going to have 2 that won't have a slot. Unless we tell them we're going to forego that this year. If we do what Candace and Ava and I've talked about, if Ava's able to get approval from her scholarship committee, we would technically have 2 adults in the room. At that point in time, do you say, because we have 2 full-time adults in that room, that opens up more slots? The idea would be to use 2 classrooms, but they co-teach. So, initial conversations with the kids would all start together, and then they'd break out and spread out into 2 physical spaces. And I think at some level that can change that too, if we want to make sure all those kids that attend preschool with us have a spot.
Are there any more questions or a motion?
Teachers' kids, because we talked about these teachers in the district, do their kids, if they're out, do they get put on that list somewhere special?
Our policy is any staff with kids that live out of district are considered in-district kids.
Okay, very good.
Until we know from Ava that we can't really, we don't have anybody else if we wanted to split kindergarten.
No.
So really,
And it wouldn't be a true split either.
yeah.
I mean, the way we're gonna.
There's literally no way around it.
Are these the numbers that we followed last year?
No, this is all new.
Haven't we talked about this
We,
before?
we approved a policy, but we never set numbers.
Ah,
Because when we originally started talking about all this, we weren't gonna set numbers. And like I said, if we wouldn't have had the issue with sixth grade that we had, then I would tell you, don't worry about numbers. And there's a lot of small school districts that aren't. They're just saying, we're not gonna have, you know, capacity numbers. We'll take any kid that wants to come. And traditionally, that's how we've operated. Unless, I think in my 10 years, we've turned away one kid because there was major discipline issues on his record. But this would put us in a position where it very well could be that we turn away some kids. And again, you can set it as whatever you want. If we don't have a capacity, we have the potential to run into what we ran into a sixth grade. That is my concern. That is solely where my concern is coming from. That may absolutely never happen again. You know, it very well could have been just a really unique freak situation. Looking at next year's overall numbers, you know, there's room in every single grade level right now, even if you set them at 20. So.
Do you feel like setting the numbers of this will avoid some problems with that kindergarten classroom?
Good. It could also make one or two parents really, really upset too. Because they very much want their kids to come.
When will we know with Ava?
I'm hoping. Next couple days.
Can this wait till next month to be approved, or it needs to be done tonight?
Now, we really need some sort of set, because I think we've got to notify parents.
June 1st and June 15th.
We have to
July
know.
15th. June 1st to post them, and then July 15th to notify parents.
Yes, technically, we could prove numbers next month. Because we don't have to notify parents until July 15th that they've got a slot in their district.
Okay, so it's not June. So the only class right now that's an issue.
Yeah.
That is.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And the out of district kids in the kindergarten class all attended preschool here.
It's all 23 of the kids that we currently have on the roster to attend school in kindergarten
2 years or 1
attended our
year.
preschool. I don't have that information. The vast majority of them were 2 years, but I don't know all of them.
And how many of them already have, did you say some of them already have siblings in the district?
Of the 6 out of district kids in that class, 3 of them have siblings in the district.
but you said even if Ava takes it, it's not a true split? Or we
The-
could consider it a
Yeah,
split?
the way that the conversation we had with Ava, we'd do a co-teach type of situation. So it would be very similar to last year's kindergarten class with Jasa, where Jasa and Candace worked together in the classroom first semester. Jasa technically finished her student teaching, and then we split the class that semester. So she's fully certified. Ava won't be quite there yet. She won't student teach until next spring, so a year from August. But part of the conversation we had was if she feels comfortable, we feel comfortable, we could split the class that semester and run 2 separate classrooms that way.
So Ava has this year left of college classes, or like this upcoming school year.
Yeah.
So she'll graduate like in May, like this time next year with her elementary ed degree.
Her coursework will be done in May, and then
And
she
then
would have a
she'll have
semester of
student
student
teaching
teaching.
next.
She'd be in the exact same situation as Brooke. Now, I believe both of them, with a couple of exceptions, almost all the hours they will take this next year are observation hours, so they would be in the classroom anyway. So as far as workload for them, they're going to be in the classroom anyway.
My thought is that if these kids have already been here in the system, that we can't. I would say the number would need to be if it's a new out of district. That's my feeling. Because if they've been here in the preschool system.
Technically, that is the law. The law does not cover anything before kindergarten. So any kid that you let in,
For like kindergarten through.
kindergarten on
Yeah.
up, now is an in-district kid, once you let that kid in. Now, we have our rules. You have to maintain attendance and a handful of things to keep that slot. But at that particular point in time, that kid technically counts as an in-district kid. And you can't remove them simply because you've hit your max capacity. So technically, if preschool was part of that, we couldn't turn them away, but preschool is not part of the law. So you could, I mean, that could be a way around the conundrum with kindergarten for next year.
So if we don't get Ava,
We have to cut in.
We don't have to. I mean, the
There'd just
problem
be
you've
a-
got is if it's not Ava, I don't know who else we're going to get. Whether, I mean, the nice thing with Ava and Brooke is they're going to be teachers. So they've been trained to be teachers.
right? I mean, I guess what I meant was if we don't get Ava, the burden for kindergarten will all be on Candace next year.
And I'll do everything I can to find a pair that will be in the classroom the entire time. But just like teachers, finding anybody is getting harder and harder.
Have you talked to Candace about this at all?
Mhm.
And what are her thoughts?
I think we are both hopeful that Ava works out. I know that she has talked to Lisa and Kendra about the class as a whole. There are a handful of kids in that class that will have a lot of peer support. So there will be adults in the room, but their responsibility will be very limited because of the vast majority of their focus is going to be on
Will be assigned to
one or
one
two
student.
kids, yeah. You know, so it's not like she will be in the classroom by herself, but it will be a lot. If we don't have someone specifically assigned to help co-teach or split the class, it will be a lot for one person.
And this number of 23 is all day kindergarten, not any of them that are doing like half day preschool, half day kindergarten.
Correct. And that's kind of where we were going with what we want to do with kindergarten. And kind of where the idea of that transitional class came in after conversations that we've had and then conversations with Lisa and and Candace and those type of things is when we do have a handful of kids that, you know, could possibly do a 50-50 split, but we're trying to get away from that. You know, my concern with that is the number of kids that we could do that with. All that's doing is taking slots away from kids that need to be in preschool. That's 3 and 4-year-olds. But no, right now, all 23 of these would be full day kindergarten.
You're like, it's on overall, just on setting numbers, or what?
Now, if we set these numbers and then Ava works out or somebody else, can we then accept? We go up more.
You guys have the authority to change these numbers anytime you want.
I guess I'm on the fence about it because on one hand, I don't want to turn away students,
Too. I don't want to.
but on the other hand, especially if it would eliminate some that could potentially be problem students. And then also if that kindergarten class is going to be challenging anyway, then maybe it's what's best. I don't know. I mean, are there a lot of discipline issues with that group that's coming out of preschool?
No. There's a handful of high needs kids. I would say that they overall work pretty well together. Get along pretty well. I would say that for the most part, the issues that Kendra and Lisa dealt with that group is just because of age. You know, more, I want my money type of thing. And a lot of that's gone at the end of the school year. You'll have some of that start up at the beginning of the school year because they've been home all summer. But
Are there any, do you have any students in that kindergarten class that did not do preschool?
no, all 23 of these were in our preschool program.
But there won't be any additional that live in district that
Not
are
that,
not.
not that
going
we
to
know of
preschool.
right now. We have done kindergarten roundup. We advertised that all those, I would hope that everybody that wants to enroll their kid with us has
It's basically
has
accounted for.
told us and is ready to go. Now, we could have people move into town over the summer.
Right.
Look at that. And that's part of the problem when I look at the 6th grade classes, that's exactly what happened. And it just happens that all 6 of the kids who moved into Nest City this last summer were 6th graders.
But there was nothing we could do about it because they were all in the city kids.
For the most part. I mean, there's, like I said, if you look at that 6th grade class, I think there is 8 or 9 that are out of district kids.
But when all those kids moved in, they were already students, correct?
They were all
Sure.
in the city students.
Sure.
There are
In district.
three that were not.
But once they're already going to school here, we're not gonna tell them in the middle of the school year, hey, you're out of district, now we're at these numbers, so you can't come here anymore. I mean, we're not gonna say that to people, are we?
Well, we have this year.
Like kids that were already going to school.
No,
here, you
not
kicked
not
them
going to
out of
school
our
here.
school
No,
during
no.
the school year?
No, I'm sorry. We have had a handful of kids, or 6th grade particular, that have come in after we set that 25 number here right after the first of the year that wanted to enroll here after that date, that we have out of district kids that we have turned away. We cannot
So-
turn away in district kids.
So if like, let's say they live in Bazine and they start the school year here, and then we get 3 new people that.
Yeah, we don't kick them out.
We don't
Yeah,
kick them out.
Once they're in, they're in.
Okay.
And like I said, going in the 7th grade and 8th grade, we got 2 sessions of each section.
Right.
Just Barring any change in projected staff for next year.
The 23 number, that has nothing to do with class room size. That is what you think is the best that the teacher can handle.
No,
Or can we
that's
just bump it to
20
23?
Yeah.
20s.
20, I think is,
I mean, is there a reason why you just can't bump it to 23 and move on?
we can do that. We can set it at 25
If
if you
you
want
wanna
to.
make that motion, go ahead. I mean, I think that's what he's waiting on, I'm not sure.
And bigger school districts, so some that I've heard of, they got a 24 student class limit.
24.
For
Mhm,
bigger school districts.
Yeah.
You could make a motion if you did 20, but if you had the staffing availability to split the classroom, you can add out of district kids.
Well, if we split the class, it's, the way it's set up is each section is 20. We can set it 23, we can set it 24, we can set it 25. You can set it whatever you want. You can say there's no max.
Did Candace feel like she?
I think if we have an Ava or someone similar to an Ava, Candace is very comfortable with taking the kids on in a co-teach type of situation.
If they came to preschool in that city, I don't want to turn them away.
Which this would solve it for next year because you're capping preschool too.
Yes and no. The problem with preschool is they're 3 and 4 year olds. So if you happen to have 25 4-year olds, but you readdress these numbers.
I would move to approve the class capacities with the change on K8 to 23.
So what does that mean? We're gonna cap it at 23?
Mhm. That would give every kid that is currently a student here a slot. As a preschooler through.
And second that motion.
Any more discussion or questions? All those in favor of the motion? All those, oh, yeah, very good. Move on. We already talked about kindergarten. and I passed that out.
It's a mute point. There's not a whole lot we can do until we know we have a teacher, so.
So we can move on.
Yeah.
Summer school, please.
Proposal in front of you is 18 days plus plan and setup time. Focus will be math and reading like it was last year. I've got 3 certified teachers that will willingly do that. Amber Fonda still will be your lead. Emily Keener and Lisa Schulte will be teachers. Ava Reese and then Annette Overlease will be support aides. I think we sent out 35, 36 letters. Once we get information back from those parents, we'll open it up to others too. So we're hoping we'll have, 25, 30 kids show up to summer school.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Negotiation.
20.
Got a motion?
Great reluctance.
Second.
And a second, all those. Right, motion.
Motion for 5 more minutes in executive session.
Second.
For negotiation.
Still got to do. Session for personnel.
Do we get a late start tomorrow if we're here past?
I set precedent, so, yeah.
Got the barn to finish.
Already take away.
We just go 5 or
Are you gonna do another 5 on this one?
does everybody feel like we have consensus in there?
Need to wait till everybody comes back in the meeting.
How we feeling?
Are we going, are we leaving again?
Yeah.
Oh, we are?
Anything more on negotiation?
If you guys are comfortable.
And you suggest 5?
We talk fast.
Better go 10. I make a motion.
Do we need to extend our meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, motion is
How many minutes?
30 to 10:30.
Okay, I'll make a motion to extend the meeting.
Second.
to 10:30.
All in favor?
Make a motion, we go into, where are we going?
Exactly. 10 minutes of personnel.
10 minutes personnel.
Jason, second.
Second.
Judy, all in favor?
So which one?
Oh, the meeting itself? No, don't be, well,
You can't replace them.
Another 5.
Is there a second?
I'd second that.
All in favor? 8.6, list of resignations, entertain a motion.
So move.
Motion second, all those in favor? Has the 4 hiring there. We have a motion.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor? Here's classified staff renewal.
Recommend as presented.
I'd make a motion to classified staff renewals.
There's a second.
Second.
And a second, all those in favor? Supplemental contract.
Make a motion that we approve supplemental contracts.
Can I add the one I talked to you about there? I'd like to add, make an
Yes.
amendment to what you're presented there with the summer two thousand
Summer
twenty-four.
weights.
Summer weights to Julian Armand.
Yes.
That's the motion. As presented with the addition of Julian for summer weights. Is there a second?
I'd second.
All those in favor? 8.9, Mr. Fly.
Okay. As it read right there, sports cooperative high school football. All right. I want to present, I guess, maybe I don't know, to some people that will hear this will be the unpopular opinion. It is time, necessity, and Western Plains figure out ways to work together. And sports cooperatives might be the first, I guess, endeavor. And so anyway, I've had some informal conversations, and I think it's maybe time to move it to formal. My concern, honestly, is not with football. Yes, football is a concern. I have a concern with our high school numbers of girls that are active in athletics. I'm not sure that's an area that Western Plains is ready to engage and talk yet, but at the same time, we need to maybe have that conversation. I anticipate 3 freshman girls out for team sports next year. There's 1 sophomore girl who will be cross country, and probably 1 sophomore girl in basketball. So if you look right there, that's 3 to 4 underclassmen, what I consider underclassmen. I think juniors and seniors, I know juniors are considered underclassmen technically, but the majority of our roster at the high school level are going to be juniors and senior girls. Boys wise, we're not going to be super strong in numbers, 15 to 22, 23. We like to see across the board, football to basketball, maybe a little bit more than that with cross-country boys, counting with the football. I mean, we have better participation rates, it seems like, with our high school boys. But you look at the next year's freshman and sophomore classes, in addition to being our 2 smallest classes back to back, are also 75% boys, each class. Out of the 12 current freshmen, 9 boys, 3 girls. Now we're at 15 8th graders, 9 boys, 6 girls, but only 3 of those girls will play anything athletic. So I know Western Plains, I believe, has added it to their agenda tonight through just some conversations I've had with a staff member of theirs. I know, I guess I'll let Mr. Reinhardt speak for himself on what conversation he's had. But I do think it's time to move it to a formal level, and I'll put that out. You guys' thoughts on this? So
I had a good conversation with Jeff Jones, our superintendent. I think there's a path forward with some of this. The things that he brought up didn't concern me as far as concessions they would want. They make sense. I get it. my recommendation at this point in time, if the board as a whole feels that it's worth having these conversations, is to create a subcommittee with one or two board members, Tom and myself, to meet with Western Plains, and have more of a formal conversation, have a small group put together a plan that go to both boards if we see a path forward. I think trying to do this with two full boards and not having something already in writing set, spelled out, this would be the plan. I don't think we'll ever be able to get anywhere, but I think we had a handful of us to sit down with a handful of them, develop a plan to bring to both boards for approval. I think there's some interest, there's some concerns there. But I would agree with Tom that it is probably time to have some conversations about what we can work together as an entire county on, especially as we're both facing shortages on staffing too.
And I will say that we got numbers to fill our activities. So I don't want to say, but that's for this next year. I don't know, and then are we doing our kids a disservice in time or not? But I don't know. I know there's gonna be 35 variables we'd have to work out, any type of corporate agreement. I mean, the name, locations of practices, games, schedules, classifications. I will tell you this, football wise, it would not change it. It would, if Western Plains and Ness City joined high school football right now, it would not change. We could play Ness City's 8-man Division I schedule. We'd have a combination of 97 kids under the 100-man limit. I have already cleared that with Keisha. If this last year, let's just say we use this so I don't know what next year's enrollment numbers will be, but we have to use last year's September 20th count, we would have played in 2A. Volleyball, basketball, can't do a cooperative in softball. We have a cooperative agreement in place with Hodgman County. You can't have 3 teams at the high school level, 3 schools. So that one, and that we did a 2-year agreement with them. So we would still have 1 more year. So that one couldn't be entered in right now. Just we're talking, you can't do cooperative agreements. You really can't. You can't. For your what's called quasi-individual sports, your cross country, your golf, your track and field. The state labels them as a quasi-individual. I mean, you can do a cooperative agreement together to compete during the regular season, but anytime you get to postseason, you got to put on your own uniform. Wrestling would fit in that same boat. We don't obviously have wrestling, but that's how those sports are treated. So, I mean, any type of corporate agreements would be your team sports. If we're talking that right now.
Do you need a motion to get a subcommittee or?
I think that's your next step. If there's enough interest amongst the board to at least have a conversation, I think that's your next step.
I support having a conversation to look into it.
I do too, but I do not support me being on that subcommittee. I think especially for something like that, if Tom and Jason are willing, I'd like to see long time Ness City people been to school here be involved on that side of the taking care of it rather than most of the rest of us.
I can volunteer to be on the subcommittee.
So I don't know that you need more than 2. I don't know that you need 2. It could probably be done with Tom and I and their administration and a board member. So that board member can speak that, yes, this is what we talked about.
I'll be honest with you. My hope is this could lead to academic cooperation in time.
I'd volunteer. So I'd make a motion. We need to make a motion to have a conversation, have a
Right.
formal.
Create a subcommittee to have a conversation
I
about
don't know if you have to do that.
cooperative agreement.
So I'd
And
make
put
such a
you
motion.
and Shelby on it.
Jason's made a motion
Second.
for himself and Shelby, second from Tom.
Yes.
All those in favor? Okay. Waiver payout medical leave. Is she got this reasonable thing in her letter?
Now, Shelley is asking to get paid for that. If you follow our policy, she does not meet any of the 3 requirements. You have to be employed with USD 303 for a minimum of 10 years. She is just meeting that, I guess. Technically meets 60 years of age or older. Technically, she's only 59 and she is not eligible for capers yet. It's whether or not you are willing to break policy to do that for her. I believe it's gonna cost you a whole $675. But once you do it for one, you're doing it for everybody.
I'm gonna speak on her behalf. I guess I hope there are so many things that classified staff, and I'll even say even myself, we follow along with what's in the negotiated agreement, but we're not part of the negotiated agreement. And I just hate to pick and choose. I don't know. She's been a heck of an employee for 10 years. But I mean, and she's not debating anything, she's asking. But I do know that, you know, let's keep her from taking 27 sick days here to the end of June. And then we get, got a new secretary starting tomorrow that I really need her to go side by side with for the next 5.5 weeks so we can transition properly. I just admit, to me, it's a small gesture, but I understand.
That's also where we get in trouble though, because like elementary saying we don't follow through with policies, and we don't listen to the policies, and we don't enforce the policy. And then we don't.
But why do we hold classified to so many negotiated items,
When they're not part of it.
but we don't,
Yeah.
but they're not part of that agreement?
Because when I read it, it appears to me that she makes some pretty valid points.
I will tell you, there are school districts out there that will pay you for every single one of those days, whether you've been there 1 year or 400 years. So
I think after 10 years, she deserves something. especially if she's going to train our new, a new person, would be my thoughts.
How much is it cost?
675.
I'll make that motion.
I'd second.
Have a motion and a second. No more discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? Very good. The donations, I have a motion to accept those donations.
Second.
Second from Lori, all in favor? Patron access, Shannon Fonsteel.
Fairball. So move.
Second.
I got crazy, all in favor. And college credit hours for Linda Tillotson.
So move.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? I move to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, we have another one.
No, we don't.
14.
No,
It was added right before. It's Lynn Burnbeck for college credit hours.
it's not on my list.
It's on the computer.
Some of
They got added later than.
All those in favor? I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
I thought you promised us